Guten Abend. Last week the German parliament decided to pass a resolution condemning the Armenian genocide, and out of the 630 members of parliament, 628 decided to vote for the resolution. One member of parliament abstained, and one member of parliament rejected the resolution. I believe this resolution and the events around it give us a good insight into some things that are going really wrong within the Turkish Islamic community in Germany. And besides, the Turkish migrant community also happened to infuriate me with their behavior, which is the main reason why I make this video covering the events around the resolution. Because according to members of the German parliament who are of Turkish origin, they already received threats, and I'm talking real death threats and not these fake ones that SJWs talk about, from members of the Turkish community even before the resolution was passed. In some of these threats, the members of parliament were called traitors to the Turkish people. Let me spell this out for you again. The Reichstagsbuilding, where the German parliament is seated, has the phrase dem deutschen Volke on it, which means for the German people. The 630 people in there are elected to serve in parliament by the German people. These representatives serve the German people. These representatives also have the task of forming a government and voting on legislation both representative and in service of the German people. Yet according to some members of the Turkish community, these representatives of the German people are traitors to the Turkish people. This entitled and self-segregating attitude is probably one of the best examples of why such large parts of the Islamic migrant communities in many European countries are so toxic. The Turkish community protested this not because of its supposed implications for Germany, but because of its implications on Turkey. People who might have lived here for over 40 years, people who might even have been born here, go out to protest the government of that nation they live in, not to criticize it or to oppose its policies as a citizen of that country, but no, to address the government as if it were a foreign government. Let's listen to some of the stuff these Turkish protesters had to say. Is this just some stupid talking point dished out to them, or are they genuinely that stupid? In a democracy there's something called the separation of powers, the separation of the judicial and executive branch. If you don't understand that basic concept, well, then you probably don't even understand democracy in the first place. Notice that a protest rally in Berlin is held in the Turkish language. Oh, that's a 4-hour train ride from where I live. I fucking hate repeating myself, so I'm not going to. Yes, they do. They are the elected representatives of the German people. As such, they have the authority given to them by the German people to pass a resolution acknowledging and condemning the Armenian genocide. Besides, who in your opinion would be the only viable judge? The High Commission of Kebabistan? How about we ask these guys here to make a final judgment on the Balkan War for our history books? Historians around the world agree on this matter, and your pathetic whimpering doesn't change that.
Für Europa ist Türkei eine werdende Großmacht und das möchte Europa verhindern.
Yeah, this resolution is so going to damage Turkey. In fact, considering recent developments, the only ones who have been flushing Turkey down the toilet are the Turks. Speaking of which, I think it is important to mention the biggest culprit in this, which is the Turkish government and its insane and inept leader who came out ranting about sanctions. I believe what we saw in Berlin last week is a direct result of meddling by the Turkish government, but more on that later. I would like to first show you this. Yes, those are actual signs held by Turkish protesters in front of the German embassy in Turkey, accusing us of being a genocidal people and a genocidal country. This coming from a people, by the way, who, when confronted with an army of genocidal fanatics, decided to bomb the people who were the most effective at fighting those genocidal fanatics. We spent 60 years trying to learn something out of history and building an open society, whilst the Turks spent the past 200 years denying any wrongdoing on their part anywhere throughout their history, from Greece to Romania to Armenia to any other former Ottoman colony. Germany today is one of the safest countries in Europe for Jews to live, whilst minorities are leaving Turkey on a massive scale due to its religiously fueled bigotry. So go shove that sign up your ass. And this statement by the Turkish Minister of Justice: "They burned Jews in furnaces and now they slander the Turkish people by accusing us of some genocide. Why don't you look at your own history first?" That statement pretty much hits the nail on the head in an ironic way. We did look at our history. In fact, we spent several decades doing so. What the fuck did you do besides going from one ruthless and brutal military dictatorship to another until you turned into a pathetic Islamic state? And speaking of that Islamic state, here is what I was talking about earlier when talking about the Turkish government's responsibilities in this. Yes, the Turkish president hosted illegal campaign events in Germany, at which he told Turkish migrants to raise their children Turkish first, German second, essentially an attempt to deliberately undermine any efforts by society to integrate the Turkish migrant community and make them part of the social framework. Whilst I was editing this video, I watched a recent Thunderfoot video on the pathetic Reason Rally and realized that more people turn up to deny a genocide in the name of an Islamic state than turned up for the Reason Rally in the US. And I noticed this clip by Steve Shives.
There were even speakers who spoke out about the importance of working for fair and just and humane treatment for Muslims in America. And everybody cheered. Nobody booed. Nobody cried, SJW, regressive left. Everybody was on board with it. And if the people weren't on board with it, I guess they just kept their fucking mouths shut, which is just what they ought to do.
And that pretty much summarizes everything that is going wrong with secular movements today.